The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and dreamed of what was out there. When humans finally built ships that could travel between stars, they thought their dreams would come true. They thought they would find friends among the stars. They were wrong. Una stood in the great hall of the Galactic Council. The room was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. Strange lights floated in the air. Aliens of all shapes and sizes sat in chairs that curved up toward the ceiling like a giant bowl. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had bodies made of gas and light. All of them looked down at the small human woman standing alone on the floor below. For 300 years, humanity had been part of this council. For 300 years, they had followed every rule. They had signed unfair treaties. They had given up planets they found first. They had smiled when aliens called them primitive. They had stayed quiet when bigger empires pushed them around. Una had spent 15 years as a diplomat. Her job was to keep the peace. Her job was to make friends with aliens who thought humans were nothing more than clever animals. It was hard work. Most days, she went home tired and angry. But she kept doing it because she believed things would get better. Her friend Taiho believed the same thing. He was an ambassador, older than Una, with gray hair and kind eyes. He always said that patience would win in the end. He always said that if humans just kept being good and peaceful, the galaxy would learn to respect them. That belief died 3 weeks ago. The Velthari Empire was one of the oldest powers in the galaxy. They had 4 eyes, blue skin, and hearts as cold as ice. They had ruled over dozens of worlds for 10,000 years. They thought they were better than everyone else. They thought they could do whatever they wanted. And 3 weeks ago, they proved it. The human colony on Kepler-4 42b was a peaceful place. 12 million people lived there. Farmers grew food in green fields. Scientists studied the local plants and animals. Children played in parks and went to school. It was a simple life, a good life. The Velthari decided they wanted the planet. Not because they needed it. They had hundreds of worlds already. They wanted it because the ground contained rare minerals. They wanted it because humans had it. They did not ask. They did not negotiate. They did not even warn anyone. One morning, the sky above Kepler-4 42b turned bright white. Velthari warships fired their weapons. The heat was so intense that the oceans boiled. The forests burned. The cities melted. In less than 1 hour, 12 million humans were dead. Men, women, children, babies, all of them gone. When humanity demanded justice, the Galactic Council held a meeting. The Velthari ambassador stood in this very hall and explained that humans had no legal right to the planet. He said the minerals were being wasted on a lesser species. He said the attack was unfortunate but necessary. The council voted. Most species sided with the Velthari. Some were afraid of them. Some had made deals with them. Some simply did not care about humans at all. The final decision was simple. The council expressed regret for the loss of life. They suggested that humans move to less valuable territories. They did nothing to punish the Velthari. Nothing at all. Now Una stood before them again. The Velthari ambassador watched her with his 4 cold eyes. A small smile sat on his thin lips. He expected her to accept a decision. He expected her to bow her head and say thank you. That was what humans always did. Una looked up at the council. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "We accept your terms," she said. The room relaxed. Aliens nodded to each other. Another human surrender. Another boring day. "We accept," Una continued. "That diplomacy has failed." The room went quiet. The Velthari ambassador's smile disappeared. Una reached up and removed her ambassador's sash. It was a strip of blue cloth that showed her rank. She had worn it proudly for 15 years. She let it fall to the floor. "Humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Consortium," she said. Her voice echoed in the silent hall. "We came to you as friends. We came with open hands and peaceful hearts. We asked only to be treated fairly. You answered with murder." She looked directly at the Volturi ambassador. 12 million people, families, children. You burned them alive because you wanted rocks from the ground. And this council did nothing. Some aliens shifted in their seats. A few looked uncomfortable. Most just stared. "We tried your way," Una said. "We followed your rules. We were patient and kind and peaceful. It did not matter. You saw our kindness as weakness. You saw our patience as fear. You thought we would never fight back." She took a deep breath. "You were wrong." The hall erupted in noise. Aliens shouted questions and demands. Guards moved toward Una, but she was already walking away, leaving her sash on the floor behind her. Taiho met her at the door. His face was pale but determined. "Is this really the path we are taking?" he asked quietly. Una nodded. "They killed 12 million of our people and told us to move somewhere else. What choice do we have?" Taiho was silent for a moment. Then he straightened his back and walked beside her. "Then we make them remember why humans survived on Earth," he said. "We were never the biggest or the strongest. But we never gave up. Never." Behind them, the Galactic Council was still in chaos. But none of them truly understood what had just happened. They thought humans would complain for a while and then come back, begging for forgiveness. They did not know that humanity was done begging. The galaxy was about to learn a very old lesson. The lesson was simple. Do not make enemies of people who have nothing left to lose. 3 months passed after Una walked out of the Galactic Council. The aliens expected many things. They expected angry messages. They expected humans to beg for help. They expected protests and complaints and crying. Instead, they got silence. Human space went dark. No ships came out. No messages went in. The borders closed completely. Alien merchants who tried to enter were turned away. Spies who tried to sneak in disappeared. It was like humanity had built a wall around their worlds and hidden behind it. The Velthari laughed. They said humans were scared. They said the little apes were hiding in their caves like the primitive creatures they were. Other aliens agreed. They told jokes about cowardly humans. They said humanity would fall apart without galactic trade. They were very, very wrong. Deep under the old city of Seoul, Admiral Do-Yoon looked at the screens covering every wall. Each screen showed something different. Ships being built. Soldiers training. Scientists working. The entire human race was preparing for war, and Do-Yoon was in charge of making it happen. He was 60 years old, with a scarred face and calm eyes. He had fought in small wars his whole life. Border disputes. Pirate attacks. Nothing big. But he had always known that someday, humans would have to fight for real. He had planned for this day for 30 years. His chief strategist was a woman named Minji. She was younger than him, with short black hair and a mind like a computer. For 20 years, she had studied alien warfare. She had read every battle report. She had watched every recording. She knew how aliens fought better than they knew themselves. The problem with the consortium, Minji explained to the gathered commanders, is that they are old. Their tactics have not changed in 10,000 years. They line up their big ships and shoot at each other until someone surrenders. It is simple and boring, and it works because everyone does it the same way. She pulled up images on the main screen. Alien fleets in neat rows. Alien battles that looked like two walls crashing into each other. They have never fought anyone different, she continued. They have never faced an enemy willing to fight dirty. They have never met humans. Do-hyun nodded slowly. Human history was full of blood. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. They had invented every kind of war. Sneak attacks, guerrilla fighting, terrorism, psychological warfare. Humans knew tricks that aliens had never imagined. "We cannot beat them ship to ship," Do-hyun said. "They have more ships, bigger ships, older ships. But we can beat them here." He tapped his head. "And here." He tapped his heart. The plan took shape over weeks of meetings. It had 3 phases. Phase 1 was about communication. The consortium used a network of relay stations to send messages across the galaxy. Without these stations, their fleets could not talk to each other. Humans would destroy all of them at the same time. This would blind the enemy. Phase 2 was about supplies. Alien ships needed fuel and food and repairs. Humans would attack the places that provided these things: shipyards, fuel depots, supply stations. This would starve the enemy. Phase 3 was about fear. Humans would show the galaxy that they were not weak little creatures to be pushed around. They would show that humanity could reach anywhere and hurt anyone. This would break the enemy's spirit. Every human with useful skills joined the effort. Engineer Sujin led a team of hackers who worked day and night to crack Veltari codes. After 6 weeks, they broke through. Now humans could read every secret message the Empire sent. Pilot Junsu trained the first wave of attack crews. These pilots flew small, fast ships designed to slip past defenses. They practiced in simulators for 16 hours a day. They learned to fly through asteroid fields and dodge enemy fire and hit targets no one thought could be hit. Scientist Hyun worked on weapons. Some were traditional. Better missiles, stronger shields, faster engines. Some were not traditional at all. She developed biological agents that could make aliens sick without killing them. She made computer viruses that could shut down enemy ships. She created fear. But the most important work happened in a lab on the dark side of the moon. Physicist Yoonji had a theory about travel. The consortium used jump gates to move between stars. These gates were big and expensive and easy to guard. Yoonji believed there was another way. Micro-wormholes. Tiny holes in space that a ship could slip through. The consortium had studied this idea long ago and decided it was impossible. The math was too hard. The energy needed was too much. Yoonji did not care what the consortium thought was impossible. She had lost her brother on Kepler 442b, her nephew, her best friend. She worked 20 hours a day for 3 months. She checked her math 1,000 times. She built a prototype with her own hands. On the night before the attack, she called Do-hyun. "It works," she said. Her voice was tired but proud. "We can go anywhere. They will never see us coming." Do-hyun smiled for the first time in months. Across human space, final preparations were made. Weapons were loaded. Targets were confirmed. Soldiers wrote letters to their families. Some prayed. Some cried. All of them were ready. In a small room on a military station, Yuna and Taiho watched the countdown clock. "Do you think we can win?" Taiho asked. Yuna shook her head. "I do not know. Maybe we will all die. Maybe they will burn Earth like they burned Kepler. But I know one thing." "What?" "We will not die quietly. We will not die begging. If humanity ends tomorrow, the galaxy will remember us. They will remember that we fought back." The clock reached 0. All across human space, engines roared to life. Ships disappeared into micro-wormholes that should not have existed. Soldiers gripped their weapons and thought of the 12 million dead. The silence was over. Humanity was coming, and they were very, very angry. The Valkyrie High Command received the first warning at 3 in the morning. A relay station in the outer territories had stopped sending signals. The officer on duty thought it was a technical problem. He sent a repair team to check. 10 minutes later, another station went dark. Then another. Then 5 more. By the time the commander arrived, 47 stations across the empire had stopped working. Messages could not get through. Fleets could not communicate with headquarters. The Valkyrie were blind. What is happening? The commander demanded. No one could answer. This had never happened before. Nothing like this had ever happened in 10,000 years of Valkyrie history. Then the real attacks began. Human ships appeared from nowhere. Not from jump gates, not from the borders of human space, but from empty spots in the middle of Valkyrie territory. One moment the space was clear. The next moment, hundreds of human warships were firing their weapons. The micro-wormhole technology worked exactly as Yunji had promised. Human fleets could go anywhere instantly. The Valkyrie had no warning. Their defensive lines were useless. Their careful plans meant nothing. Admiral Do-Yun commanded the main attack force. His target was the Valkyrie homeworld. The enemy had hundreds of defense platforms around their planet, thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. By every measure, Do-Yun was outnumbered 3 to 1. It did not matter. Human ships were smaller and faster than Valkyrie ships. They did not fly in neat lines like the aliens expected. They moved like a swarm of angry bees, darting and spinning and attacking from every direction at once. Lieutenant Jihei led a squadron of interceptors through the defense grid. She was 28 years old and had dreamed of being a pilot since she was a little girl. Now she flew through fire and death, hunting for weak points in the enemy formation. "Target their sensor arrays," Minji's voice said through the radio. "Blind them first, then kill them." Jia found a gap in the defense grid. Her squadron dove through it like a knife through water. Valkyrie gunners tried to track them, but the human ships were too fast, too unpredictable. "I have the main sensor platform," Jihei reported. "Firing now." Her missiles hit the target perfectly. The platform exploded in a ball of fire. Half the defense grid lost its ability to see incoming ships. Her wingman was a young pilot named Taiwu. He was only 23 years old, fresh out of training, but he flew like he had been born in space. During the first hour of battle, he destroyed 14 enemy vessels. Then he took a hit. The enemy missile tore through his ship's engine. Alarms screamed. Fire filled the cockpit. Taiwu knew he had only seconds before the whole ship exploded. He could have tried to run. He could have called for rescue. Instead, he did something the Valkyrie never expected. He ejected from his dying ship and started broadcasting his location. His radio signal went out to everyone, human and alien alike. "Come get me," he said. "I am right here." A Valkyrie cruiser changed course to capture him. Enemy commanders loved taking prisoners. They wanted to question them, torture them, make examples of them. The cruiser did not know that Taiwu had spent his retreat scattering mines. Small devices that floated silently in space, invisible to sensors, waiting for something big to come close. When the cruiser entered the minefield, the explosions ripped it apart. Taiwu died a few minutes later when his oxygen ran out. He died smiling. His helmet camera recorded everything. That recording was sent to every human ship, every human world, every human soldier. A young man had given his life to destroy his enemies. He had turned his own death into a weapon. The humans fought harder. All across the galaxy, similar stories happened. Human soldiers used tricks and traps that the Consortium had never seen. They hacked enemy ships and turned their weapons against each other. They crashed empty ships into enemy stations like giant missiles. They used asteroids as weapons, pushing them into collision courses with alien bases. Engineer Sujin led a team that hijacked the Velthari communication network. Suddenly, enemy fleets started receiving false orders. Ships went to the wrong places. Defenses opened for attacks that were not coming. Chaos spread through the Empire like fire. On every frequency, humans broadcast the names and faces of the dead from Kepler 442b. Pictures of families. Videos of children laughing. Recording of normal people living normal lives before the Velthari killed them all. Remember them, the broadcast said. Remember what you did. Remember why we are here. The psychological attack was devastating. Some alien soldiers refused to fight. They did not want to face an enemy this angry, this creative, this willing to die. Stories spread about human rage. Rumors said that humans could not be stopped, could not be reasoned with, could not be scared. By the end of the first day, the Velthari had lost a third of their fleet. By the end of the second day, they had lost half. By the end of the third day, they begged for negotiations. Admiral Do Yoon received a message in his command center. The Velthari Emperor himself was asking for peace talks. He wanted to discuss terms. He wanted to end the war. Do Yoon looked at the message for a long time. He thought about the 12 million dead. He thought about Taiwu smiling as he died. He thought about all the years humans had been mocked and cheated and ignored. Tell them no, he said finally. We are not finished yet. The war continued. Human ships pushed deeper into enemy territory. More stations fell. More fleets surrendered. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 10,000 years was falling apart. And somewhere in space, floating in the darkness, a young pilot's body drifted among the wreckage of his enemies. Taiwu had won his final battle. Humanity would win theirs. 6 months after the first shots were fired, General Hana walked through the doors of the Velthari Imperial Palace. Her boots made sharp sounds on the polished floor. Behind her walked 50 human soldiers in full battle armor. Their weapons were ready, but they did not need them anymore. The fighting was over. The Velthari had lost. The Great Hall of the palace was designed to make visitors feel small. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadow. The walls were covered with pictures of Velthari victories going back thousands of years. Statues of dead emperors watched from every corner. None of it scared Hana. She had seen too much death in the last 6 months to be impressed by pretty decorations. The Velthari Emperor waited on his throne. He was tall, even for his species, with 4 eyes that burned with cold hatred. His body was covered in the blue scales of his people. Golden armor covered his chest. He had ruled his empire for 200 years. He had never lost a battle before now. Around the throne stood his generals and advisors. They looked tired and afraid. Many of them had wanted to surrender weeks ago, but the emperor had refused. He believed the Velthari could never lose to lesser creatures like humans. He had been wrong. Hannah stopped 10 steps from the throne. Protocol said she should bow. She did not. You know why I'm here, she said. Her voice echoed in the silent hall. The emperor's 4 eyes narrowed. You have come to gloat. No, I have come to accept your surrender. The word hung in the air like poison. Surrender. For 10,000 years, the Velthari had made other species surrender to them. They had never imagined it could happen to them. The emperor stood slowly. Even defeated, he was proud. He walked down from his throne until he stood before Hannah. He towered over her, more than twice her height. Then he did something no Velthari emperor had ever done in the entire history of his species. He knelt. His advisors gasped. Some looked away in shame. The emperor's face showed nothing but cold acceptance of reality. The Velthari Empire surrenders to the Human Alliance, he said through clenched teeth. We accept your terms. Hana looked down at him for a long moment. This creature had ordered the death of 12 million humans. He had watched the recordings of Kepler 442b burning and felt nothing but satisfaction. He deserved no mercy. But Hana was not here for revenge. She was here to build a better galaxy. You could have avoided this, she said quietly. We asked only for fairness. We asked only to be treated with basic respect. You were weak, the Emperor replied. His voice was bitter. The weak do not deserve fairness. That is how the galaxy works. We were patient, Hana corrected him. There is a difference. We chose peace because we valued life. You mistook that choice for weakness. That was your mistake. She turned to her aide, a young captain named Sungu. Begin dismantling their military infrastructure. All of it. Sungu nodded and began giving orders into his radio. Within hours, human teams would start taking apart everything that had made the Valkyrie powerful. Shipyards would be demolished. Weapons factories would be destroyed. The fleet that had once terrorized the galaxy would be reduced to a handful of patrol boats. The Emperor watched with barely controlled rage. You will leave us defenseless. Our enemies will destroy us. Your enemies were created by your cruelty, Hana replied without sympathy. You have 200 years to learn how to make friends instead. I suggest you start. News of the surrender spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Other species, who had been watching the war with fear, now watched with amazement. The mighty Valkyrie had fallen. Humanity had won. But humanity was not finished. 1 week later, Ambassador Taiho stood in the rebuilt Galactic Council chamber. The same room where Yuna had dropped her sash 6 months earlier. The same aliens who had ignored humanity's pleas for justice now sat in nervous silence. Taiho was not the same gentle diplomat he had been before the war. His eyes were harder now. His voice carried the weight of millions of dead. Humanity has defeated the Valkyrie Empire, he announced. Now we must discuss the future of this council. The Rilkathi delegate, a creature of green scales and sharp teeth, raised one clawed hand. The council had no part in the Valkyrie attack. You cannot blame us for their crimes. Cannot blame you? Taiho repeated softly. When the Valkyrie burned 12 million humans alive, this council voted. 73 species voted against punishing them. 73 species told humanity that our lives did not matter. He pulled up a list on the main display. Names and pictures of every representative who had voted against sanctions. Every species on this list will pay reparations to humanity. The amount will be based on your economy. No one will be destroyed. No one will go hungry. But you will pay for your choice. Outrage erupted in the chamber. Delegates shouted protests. Some threatened war. But they all knew the truth. After watching humanity destroy the Valkyrie, no one wanted to fight humans. Taiho waited for the noise to die down. Furthermore, he continued, every planet that humanity discovered and was forced to give up will be returned. Every treaty signed under threats will be cancelled. Every debt based on unfair trade will be forgiven. You cannot do this, the Rilkathi delegate protested. This is against all galactic law. We can do this, Taiho said firmly. We have the fleet. We have the will. And we have 12 million reasons to be unreasonable. He paused, letting his words sink in. For 300 years, we tried to be good members of this community. We followed your rules, even when they hurt us. We smiled when you insulted us. We stayed quiet when you stole from us. We believed that patience and kindness would eventually earn your respect. His voice hardened. We were fools. You saw our kindness as weakness. You saw our patience as fear. You thought we would never fight back because we had never fought back before. Taiho looked around the room at the assembled aliens. Many could not meet his eyes. We are done being patient. We are done being kind to those who treat us like animals. From now on, humanity will be treated as equals in this galaxy. Not because you want to, because you have no choice." He turned and walked toward the exit. "Any questions can be directed to our fleet commanders. I believe some of them are currently in orbit around your homeworlds." The chamber sat in stunned silence. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity was just getting started. 10 years had passed since the war ended. The galaxy was a different place now. New Geneva Station floated in the space between 3 star systems. It was massive, bigger than some moons, built by humans and aliens working together for the first time in history. This was the heart of the new Galactic Union, and Counselor Una stood at its center. She was older now. Gray streaks ran through her black hair. Lines marked her face from years of hard work and harder choices. But her eyes were still bright, still determined, still full of the fire that had made her walk out of the old council so many years ago. The new council chamber was different from the old one. Instead of a giant bowl where powerful species looked down on weaker ones, this room was flat. Every delegate sat at the same level. Every voice had the same weight. It was a small change that meant everything. Humans did not have more seats than anyone else. They did not rule the galaxy. They had fought a war to be equals, not masters. But when Una spoke, everyone listened. Not because they were afraid of human weapons, because they respected what humanity had done. The new union operated on principles that humans had demanded. Equal representation for all species. A defense alliance that protected everyone, strong and weak alike. And one absolute law that could never be broken. No one could destroy a planet. Ever. For any reason. Violations meant facing a peacekeeping force led by human commanders. That force had been tested twice in 10 years. Both times, the violators had surrendered within days. Nobody wanted to fight humans again. Admiral Dohun had retired 5 years ago. He lived now in the rebuilt colony of Kepler 4, 42b. The humans had given the planet a new name, Memorial. New colonists had planted forests where the old cities once stood. Gardens grew over the ashes of the dead. Children played where millions had burned. Dohun spent his days teaching at the military academy there. Young officers from a dozen species came to learn from the human who had defeated the Velthari. They studied his tactics. They learned his philosophy. Most importantly, they learned his most important lesson. Wars should be won quickly and completely, so they never have to be fought again. Minji had become a professor at the Union's Central University. Her books on military strategy were required reading for every officer in the galaxy. Alien generals, who had once mocked human warfare, now quoted her work with deep respect. She never let the praise go to her head. She remembered too well how much blood those strategies had cost. Engineer Sujin ran the Union's communication network. She had rebuilt it from scratch, making it faster and more secure than the old consortium system. Sometimes late at night, she thought about the code she had cracked during the war. The messages she had intercepted, the lies she had planted. She was proud of her work, but she was also tired of secrets. The new network was open and honest. No more hiding. No more tricks. The Velthari still existed. Their empire was gone, but their people survived. Some humans had wanted to destroy them completely. An eye for an eye. A planet for a planet. It would have been easy. It would have been satisfying. But humanity had chosen mercy. We could have killed them all. Una explained to a young alien journalist who asked about the controversial decision. Some of our people wanted exactly that. I understood their anger. I felt it myself. She looked out the window of her office at the stars beyond. But genocide is what they did to us. If we had done the same to them, we would have become them. We would have proven that we were no better than the monsters who burned Kepler 442b. The journalist tilted his head, a gesture of confusion in his species. But they killed 12 million of your people. How could you show mercy after that? Mercy is not weakness, Una said. Mercy is strength. It is easy to kill your enemies. It is hard to let them live and change. The hard path is usually the right one. She smiled slightly, the first smile the journalist had seen from her. Besides, the Velthari have to live every day knowing they were beaten by the species they called primitive animals. That is a punishment worse than death for a proud people like them. On Memorial, a different kind of future was growing. A young teacher named Jiang led her class through the Memorial Gardens. Her students were mixed, human children, Rilkethi youngsters, and even a young Velthari whose parents had moved to the colony as a gesture of peace. They stopped before the Great Wall. It was made of black stone and stretched for miles. Every name of every person who had died in the attack was carved into its surface. 12 million names. It took hours to walk from one end to the other. Jiang touched one name near the beginning. Her grandmother. Can anyone tell me what HFY means? She asked her students. A human boy raised his hand eagerly. Humanity, something? The young Velthari answered quietly. He spoke human language with a slight accent. It means your people are dangerous. Some of the human children glared at him. But Jiang shook her head gently. It means we protect what we love, she corrected. All species do that. Humans just had to remind the galaxy of that truth. She looked at each of her students in turn. Remember, strength is not about being the biggest or the oldest. It is not about having the most ships or the best weapons. She knelt down to be at eye level with the children. Strength is about knowing what matters and refusing to let anyone take it from you. Our people were farmers and scientists and teachers. They were not warriors. But when someone tried to destroy what they loved, they became the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever seen. The Velthari child looked at the wall of names. I am sorry, he whispered, for what my people did. Jiang put a gentle hand on his shoulder. You did not do it. You were not even born yet. You are not responsible for the crimes of your ancestors. Then why am I here? To learn, to remember, to help make sure it never happens again. She stood up and addressed all the children. The past cannot be changed, but the future is built by people like you. Humans and Velthari and Rilkethi all working together. That is how we honor the dead. Not with more war, with peace. Above them, the sky of Memorial was clear and blue. Ships from a dozen species passed overhead, bringing visitors and supplies and hope. The colony was growing. Life was returning. In her office on New Geneva Station, Counselor Una finished her interview and returned to work. There were always more problems to solve, more conflicts to prevent, more wounds to heal. The galaxy was not perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was better than it had been. And that was enough. In the gardens of Memorial, children of former enemies played together among the monuments to the dead. Their laughter echoed off the black stone walls. 12 million names watched over them in silence. The dead would not be forgotten. But the living had to keep living. That was the human way. It always had been. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The question was simple. Would they remember it? Only time would tell. The end.